Hello, 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 and welcome to yesterlore. This is yesterlore number 50? Yeah, we're at yesterlore number 50. That's huge. Um, so in celebration of that, we're going to continue reading The Wife's Lament. So, in the last yesterlore, we started reading this poem called The Wife's Lament. It's the second in a series of elegiac poems that seem to be in a similar theme. Sorry, I'm moving around the title a bit because it keeps getting cut off for some reason. Changing the size a bit, maybe it'll align better. There we go. So The Wife's Lament is the second in a series of elegiac poems from the Exeter book that we are reading that have a similar sort of theme of separation. They're sad, and also so far our theme is also our through line has been that these are poems. These first two poems, at least in this series, are clearly written from a female perspective or with a female speaker, and we could tell that grammatically and contextually. I mentioned last time there's a theory that this poem in particular, perhaps the use of the feminine is allegorical, but we could talk about that more next time. But what we had so far of this poem, I'm not going to reread it all right now, because that would take a long time, and you could just go back and watch the last yesterlore if you want to see us getting up to this point today. But to quickly recap, the speaker is retelling a song of her sadness, and she's telling the listener of the hardship she endured and like her feelings. She talks about suffering in exile. Her lord slash husband, we infer, left for some reason, and she has early morning anxiety. We learned that word uchcharu, which means anxiety in the pre-dawn hours, thinking about the lands he might be in. He seems to be the lord of the people that he's left. And now she's kind of beset by people who are not her allies. She mentioned that in the last section. Let me actually see what specifically she said. She said, I might be on the wrong page, actually. No, I'm on the right page. We got to here, Yoma, yeah. So that was when we were looking at this part, yeah. She's in a country that is, which she has no friends in, basically, is what she's saying. And I was talking last time about how that was probably a pretty common experience for women in the Middle Ages, because they were often married into a different, in this sort of like early Germanic tribal structure that the poem is set in. It was common for women to exogamously marry someone from a different tribe, and so if they're left alone, they're surrounded by people from a different tribe, and so that could be a really alienating experience. And we don't know why her lord left, but we know that she is in exile, or at least she said she was, and that her lord asked her to hide in this what's the word here, was oh yeah, the head had. And I talked about how that might be a reference to some kind of pagan or like pre-Christian heathen burial ground of some sort. Like she's, or like a grove of some sort, some kind of hold for the dead. And that's kind of spooky. Or it might be a more sacred place, not necessarily for the dead, although that could also be a sacred place. But some kind of space of a religious significance that she is being told to hide within. So that's where we left off with her saying that she let me see what the line we left off was here. Yeah. On thisam land stede holdra freanda forthon ismin hia yomor. So she is in a land with no friends, and for that is her mind, her soul, her heart sad. Yomor. All right, so let us continue from there. Just on to the next line. Whoa, I used the wrong scroll method there. Hopefully this is still visible. Let me check. All right, cool. We are here on Tha. On Tha. Okay. Tha ich me fulje makna mannan funda hard saline hye jomorne. Okay. I'll just actually go up to monan funda. I'll stop there, I think. So Tha, we've talked about this word. It's sort of like when or then, probably when here, because we have more phrases that start further down. So when each I, me, myself, full yamakna monan funda. So funda here is a past tense of the verb findan, to find. However, this is found, but the normal first person past of found, of findan, is actually fand. That's the indicative past, which tells us that this is actually not an indicative past. This has to be a subjunctive past. I mentioned this before. This is like a counterfactual, sort of like a if sort of thing. Now, this doesn't seem to be a counterfactual, though, because she's saying when. So that seems contradictory. But if we read the full phrase, it might make more sense. So when I found funda fuljamakne monnan. So monnan, this is an interesting, but it's like a rare but not unheard of usage of the verb, or the noun mun, in as a weak noun. Usually mun is a strong noun in Old English, but sometimes it shows up weak like this, and that's what's happening here. So a man, full yamakna. Full here is like fully or completely or complete, and then yamak, or sometimes you'll see it as a weak noun, yamaka, or yamak is what we see here, yamak. It means like your match. Sometimes you might see it reconstructed as yamatch. I think you'll see matcha sometimes for partner or suitor or consort, matcha or yamatcha. But yamak here, I think is just like equal or counterpart. But I think match also works as a translation, modern English word match, because she's saying, when I found for myself, for me, a man that was a full match. And both man and match are accusative here. They're, the ne here is an accusative marker on adjective. So yamakna or yamachna manan is what she found. Whenever I found myself a man, like a full match of a man, or a fully matching man, or fully equal man. And then we have had saline. We see that ne there again, for marking a direct object. So sali means joyous, happy. It's actually where the word silly comes from. But in Old English, it means like happy or fortunate. But hard here is hard. So it's actually the opposite here. Hard fortunate, or we would just say probably unfortunate. So this is, because it's accusative still, it's still referring to the man. So she found, when I found, in the subjunctive, I'll explain why when we finish the sentence, a fully matching man and a unfortunate one. And we have, again, this is maybe the third time we've seen these words in succession, or at least the second here. We have hiye yomorne. She was just talking about her heart being yomor, her hiye, her mind, or heart being yomor. Here, his is yomor. Hard saline hiye yomorne. So we're just continuing to stack on descriptors of this man. He's a full match. He is unfortunate. He's had a hard luck. We still say that when you have hard luck, and he has a sad heart. And if we continue, mod midendne. So mod, I've talked about this word before. It's another word that means the same sort of faculty as the hiya, but just more general and not specifically referring to thoughts specifically, but just the whole overall idea of the mind, spirit, heart, all of that together. This is where the word mood comes from, though. And then midend here, midend is the adjective. It's a present participle of midan. Midan means to hide something, to conceal or hide, or maybe more, less physically, we could say like to, what's the word? Repress. If we're talking about mold here, it can mean repress as well. So repressing mood. He's like suppressing his emotions, his thoughts, his mind, because his mind is sad and he's unfortunate. Okay. And then we have mordor hygenda, and that's that verb hyjan that's related to hiya that I talked about last time. Hyjan, that we saw. Oh wait, it was a ways up. Yeah, up here. Hyjan means to think or plan, and mordor, you might be able to guess the meaning of this. It's murder. Mordor is murder. Planning murder. Okay, so when she met this man who was her full match, but was unfortunate and sad in mind, and concealing his mind and planning murder? Okay. Now, notice that hygenda, this present participle, it doesn't have a ne here. Some people amend it to have an n there, like as if this was a potential mistake, like the scribe forgot the n, and that's possible. That's a possible reading, but it could be read that this mordor hygenda is a relative clause describing midend, this present participle. This could be like a relative use of the present participle. So concealing his intending murder is what he's doing, which is very interesting. But that there are two different ways to grammatically reconcile that. I think most people tend to just assume that the scribe just got tired of putting n's, that we have a ne, and the scribe maybe just missed the n here because there were a lot of ne, accusative, singular, masculine adjective endings. So all of this aside, this from Herd Saline all the way to here seems to be just describing this complete match of a man. So it sounds like her match is someone who is planning murder, and that's kind of interesting. I can't claim to understand, but different guys for different gals, I guess. Now we're gonna go back into the main sentence. When I found my full match, Blide je baro. Full oft wit beteodan. Oh yeah, no, that's. Oh, it says beotedan. I think my brain metastasized that to what it probably is. Beotedan isn't a word that we're aware of. Beteodan actually makes sense here. My eyes did the thing where you don't read every letter in a word and just autocorrect it. My brain just did that with this word. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's beteodan here. Beteodan fat unk ne jedalda nemne dath ana owicht ellis. And that's halfway through a half line alliteratively, but we're going to pause there before F because F starts a new sentence, I think. So blide is a word we have seen before. Blide means like happy, and yabaru is of bearing or of how you present yourself, your how you carry yourself. So happy of what's the word? Like your personality, your outward personality is happy, outgoing, maybe. And then full oft, very often, wit beteodan, I think is this word. Actually, maybe my autocorrect brain is wrong. Actually, yeah, my autocorrect brain is wrong. I think this is just a weird past tense. I'm not used to ed here. And the an is weird. But this is the late. I've talked about this before with the Exeter book. It's late. The writing of this book, even though the poetry is older, the manuscript is pretty late West Saxon, and so sometimes forms are weird in the sense that they're later forms of Old English. I think this is what should be like beotodan, or beotodon would make sense. The an throws me off. It was making me think it was an affinitive beteodan, which is unrelated. But no, this is beotodon, and this is the verb beotian. Beotan is to promise or brag, like make a boast in front of a bunch of people that you're going to do something. So it has that sense of promise and boast. But here probably promise because it's wit again, we two, the two of us, are fun dual pronouns that I talked about last time. We two promised, full often we two promised that, and then we have unk again. This is another dual pronoun, the two of us. Ne jedalda nemna dath ana. So yedalan, I believe I talked about this verb before. It's dalan or yedalan here is to divide or separate. And nemna is never, except for something. So ne jedalda, not separate ever except for death, and then ana means alone. So what the heck does that whole sentence mean when you put it together? Because it was all over the place. So when I found for myself the perfectly matching man, and we have all these descriptors of him, outwardly of a blithe or happy demeanor, yabaru, but he was unfortunate, sad in mind, concealing of his mood, intending murder. But he was outwardly happy. Very often, we two promised or vowed that we would never separate. The two of us would never separate except in death alone. So this sort of condition of the unless, I think, is what's triggering the subjunctive over here. Even though find is not logically dependent on that exception, she's finding herself in the situation of that exception because she's been separated. The other thing that can sometimes trigger the subjunctive, even when it's not a counterfactual, is reported speech. And we have like a reported vow here. She found him of outward demeanor very happy, but that wasn't accurate. So it's kind of like she didn't find him. So I think there are multiple possible triggers for the subjunctive here that aren't like the typical obvious triggers for using a subjunctive, but they are there. And that's why we have funde here and not fand, which is what we'd expect from the verb finden here. So she's describing how she first met him and how the conditions of them promising they'd never be separated have clearly not been met because they've been separated. And that's what we're going to get here. Eft is that on horven. So on horven is it's the past participle of on huervan. Huervan means to like bend or move. Well, not bend physically, but more like move or change your direction. And on huervan is just another way of saying that, to change. And eft is like, usually it means backwards, or again. But here that doesn't make as much sense to translate this as again, because it's not that that has changed again. That is changed again. That is changed back, unless we're talking about back to before she met him. But I think another way of interpreting eft that we sometimes see is that eft can mean like afterwards, which seems like the opposite of again, but eft is a pretty multi-purpose word, and I think that's the sense that we have here, is that afterwards that's changed. Did I gloss over oicht ellis? I think I read it earlier, but I didn't translate it. Oicht is ought, like nothing, and ellis is else, so nothing else. Death alone, nothing else. That's all that adds. But that is changed. Is nu is nu swahit no wada. Huh. That can't be a full line. We're missing a word. I think there's a missing word in the manuscript. We're missing an alliterative W. Either we're missing an alliterative W, or we're missing an alliterative, probably maybe an N. No isn't often alliterative, but sometimes it is when it gets stress, and I think it has stress here, because wada is the second part of this second half line, so I think no has to be the alliterative word, in which case it would be an N. Is nu. Oh yeah, and we have nu. So we're missing a second word, which could start with an N or could start with something else. Yeah, because we're alliterating nu and no, which they're both getting stressed, but we're missing a stressed word in the manuscript. Is nu, metrically we need something. Swahit no wada. It is now something. Yeah, it might be like a completely missed word, because metrically it's missing. It's now blank that as it never were. No wada here is a subjunctive. It's were in the sense that we use were in like a if I were in modern English. It's a subjunctive past. So it's as if it never were. Is nu, it is now, as it never were, but we need something here metrically, some kind of word that it doesn't have to alliterate on N, because we have at least one in the first half line, but we're missing an entire lift metrically. So I think there is a manuscript missing word here. It's been a long time since I've read another translation of this poem, but let me see if I can find another edition of the poem. We're just reading straight from the manuscript, but let me see if I can find an edition, because there might be an emendation that people add. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, some people emend a ne on hujende there to make it accusative, like the other nes there, although you don't necessarily have to make that work grammatically. I think here we need a word for like poetry meter reasons, and it just kind of reads weird. It doesn't read weird in modern English when you translate it, but another word would be good. Okay, wife's lament. Old English. I don't want facsimile. I want like diplomatic. So facsimile is what we're looking at right now. This is a facsimile. Diplomatic, I think I've mentioned that before. It's when you try to preserve what's in the manuscript, but you might add emendations, but you note that you're adding them, like with brackets and things like that. And then you might have like just a revised edition, and that's when you actually make your changes without noting that and just say like, I've rewritten the poem in Old English, but like maybe with more official spelling, like changing this Beotidan to like Beotodon, for example, would be an example of making an edition of the text that's like very normalized. We'd call that normalized. Okay, I'm seeing a word added here. Yewarden would make sense. I guess it's anyone's guess what the missing word is, but what Yewarden makes it would be like it's become, as if it had never were. Yewarden is the past of Yewarden to it could just be Warden too. Warden to happen or to become. So it's happened. Isnu Yewarden Swahili Nawara. That works. Yeah. It's anyone's guess what it could be. It's just a missing word. Doesn't really change the meaning though. It's as if it never were, because they've been separated. This man is gone and we don't know exactly why, although it seems like he was planning murder and she's exiled, so he must have done something bad. her husband. So Frauenschippe Unker. So Frauenschippe, you could probably guess what Frauenschippe means. It's friendship, but Fraund has a much wider meaning in Old English. It could just be any kind of love, including romantic. And I mean, your romantic partner should be a friend, is my opinion. At least, not everyone agrees, but it makes sense. But it's our friendship, and that's Unker. Again, that is our first person dual. Our two, the two of our friendship. It's as if it never were because we've been separated. Shall each fair yenach minus fella leovan fachthu dreogan. Fachthu. Why is that nominative? That's weird. Might be another error here in the manuscript. Maybe there's weird grammar here. Unless facht can be... I don't know, facht is feminine, that's it. Is it like a weird archaic plural? Okay, sorry, I'm getting hung up on the grammar of facht, so I haven't even translated it yet. So, shall each fair yenach minus fellalelvan fachtha dreogan. So dreogan is our verb here. Well, shall is our conjugated verb, shall. Shall I? And we have inversion, so this is probably... well, actually, I think I know why we have inversion. It's just for the stress, actually. It doesn't matter that it's inverted here. Shall each fair yenach minus fellalelvan fachtha yedreogan. I shall... Dreogan is to endure. It's another word for endure. We've had like 3 of those so far. To put up with or endure. What are we enduring? Fellalelvan fachthu. It's just, this shouldn't be fachthu. Unless it's a weird archaic plural, I think is what I was saying. Although it wouldn't really be archaic. It would just be like a weird... Sometimes thu nouns. Thu nouns are like... thu is a suffix in Old English that turns... Usually it's like a verb into... Although it could also be an adjective sometimes. Into an abstract noun. It's sort of like ity. It's actually etymologically related to ity, like ity. Or like an alternative to ness that makes things into nouns. And it's feminine. So the normal conjugation of this would be thu, or not conjugation, declension. This would be like it's thu in the nominative singular as a subject, and then it's the obliquely, and it's either tha or the in the plural. there some of them show like this weird thing where they're used throughout, regardless of case, unless it's a dative plural, because those are always which means this could be an object. It's just weird. It's not the norm for these nouns even, but sometimes it happens. So I would amend this. I would either allow for that weirdness or amend this to fachthe with an E. That's what I'd expect here for the object, because fachthe is the object here. Felalelvan fachthe. Felalelvan is an adjective here. Leov is loved, beloved. And felalelf is just very loved. Fela means very. And then, so it's very loved. Fachthe. Now, fachthu is, we translate this usually as feud, or I think it's related to feud, or just animosity, or enmity, being a nemesis of someone. So enduring this much loved feud, or I think more likely, enduring the feud of my much loved one. And the reason I'm saying that is because leuf is usually a strong adjective, but this an makes it weak, which means this is actually a nominalized, well, it could be a nominalized adjective. So it's much loved one, felalelva, with an A. But it's technically ambiguous because they can show up if it's definite, which this meanness can make it definite if all of this is one object. My much loved feud. But I think it's more likely, given that this man did something, he was planning murder, he did something that hasn't been explicitly said. Maybe it was the murder he was planning, or maybe he didn't do that but did something else. But for some reason, she's been exiled and told to hide, and he's gone away. So I think it's the feud of her much loved one. So shall I, or I must endure the feud of my much loved one. And we have fer ye nah. And this is an example of ye. This isn't a ye as a prefix. This is ye as a coordinating conjunction that can mean and. Ye. It's not super common, but it does show up sometimes. Ye. So fer ye nah. Nah is near, and fer is far. So I must endure far and near my beloved ones, my much loved ones, feud. She has to endure it because she's been left behind. She's hiding in a grove, but she's hiding amongst her loved one's family, which, again, in an exogamous marriage, that's going to mean someone from a different people than her, probably. And she's the one who has to put up with the fallout, basically, of whatever her husband did. Hecht mek mon wunian on wuda. Barwa. Sorry, wuda barwa. I was going to say that. That didn't feel complete. Hecht mek mon wunian on wuda barwa under actreo. In tha earth skrava. Okay, I actually love this line so much. It's just so... Okay. My man, so the man, hecht mek. He, hecht is the past tense of hatan, to command. And it is a rare example of the reflex of a reduplicative past tense. There were some verbs, they're class 7 strong verbs in Old English, and just in Germanic in general. In some languages, there are vestiges of them originally having been all reduplicative. Gothic preserves this the best. Reduplication is when you have either a whole morpheme or word or part of a word repeated. And in Indo-European languages, like Germanic, there are sometimes verbs that will have reduplication of the first consonant, followed by what is typically reconstructed as e, and then the first consonant. So it's like a prefix that is the first consonant plus e. And in Old Germanic, this verb would have been, the verb hatan in Old English was haitana, and the past tense was reduplicative. It was hehait. So it just reduplicated hehait. Now this kind of coalesced into this word hecht in Old English here, but we see both H's because of their reduplication, which is fun. This is a nerdy grammar thing that I think is really cool. So he commanded me, the man, man, commanded me, wunian, to reside, wunian, on wooda barwa, on a wood, or in the woods, and this is genitive of the woods, in the woods, barwa. That's the word that becomes the word barrow in English. It's like a grove, in a grove of the wood, which is, I think, this herherd I was talking about earlier. That might be like some kind of heathen grove that had religious significance. Maybe it was the equivalent of a temple, but outside to a deity, or maybe it was some kind of barrow in the sense that we sometimes use it for like graves. Some kind of significance. And we have under ak treo in tham earthskrava. Under ak treo is almost exactly modern English. Under ak oak treo tree. So under oak tree, under an oak tree. We would just sound change that and also add an, because we have indefinite articles in English, modern English. So under an oak tree. So again, that kind of is that barrow idea. She's hiding under an oak tree, and I'll talk more about that in a second. In tham earthskrava. So an earthskraf. A skraf, the verb is skrivan, which originally meant to like carve or like scrape something. But a skraf is a cave, something that's been carved out. And earthskraf is an earthen cave, so it's like in the ground. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. So in the earthen cave. So there's some kind of cave underneath an oak tree in this heathen grove. That is really cool to me. I think that's really cool that this is showing up in a poem, because we don't have a lot of literature in Old English that directly talks about this sort of place, because all Old English literature that we have, for the most part, is written after Christianization of England. So learning about these spaces is really interesting. The other thing that's interesting to me is that it's an oak tree specifically, because oak is associated with sturdiness because it's a strong wood, and kind of by extension protection. If you were there or have gone back and watched my rune poem videos, oak is one of the Old English runes, ak, and there is a poem about it. Sorry, I'm just trying to clear these notifications I'm getting. That I put this on Do Not Disturb, and then it's not really listening to me. There we go. Okay. But the oak rune poem was all about how sturdy it was. It was like a big theme of the oak rune poem, of like how strong it is of wood. And there's this earthen barrow or earthen cave under an oak tree. The other thing that I find interesting is that oaks are, in Germanic mythologies that we do have recorded, heavily associated with, or somewhat associated, as heavily as it can be when there's not a lot written about it, but Oaks are associated with the god Thunor, or Thor in Old Norse. Donar in Old High German. There's Donar's Oak, which is a whole thing. I think I've talked about it before. And in the Old Norse runic runestones that we read on one of the earliest yesterlore streams I did, we read some Old Norse runestones, and a lot of those runestones were like memorials for like the departed, and a lot of them ended with Thor Wigi, may Thor hallow this, because the god Thor was associated with like hallowing places, and like that, and a lot of those runestones were also like, hey, if anyone messes with it, may they be cursed. So it's interesting that we get this grove that seems to have religious significance. It could have been a place of burial, because there's an earthen cave and an oak tree above it, and she's being told to hide within it, which is interesting. I know I've said that like 4 times now, but it's very interesting to me, and hopefully to you too. I don't know. If it's not, sorry you've listened to me ramble about this nonstop for like 10 minutes. That's what you came for. Eald is thes earthsala. Eal each elm of longad. Okay, I think that is the end of a sentence. Cool. It's nice that the page ends on the end of a sentence. So, Eald, old, right? Old is this earthsala. Sela is like a hall. Earthsala, earthen hall. An earth hall. It's old. Again, emphasizing this is something very old. Probably of a pre-Christian nature. Al each elm of longad. Of longian is one of those verbs that expresses an emotion. I talked about this briefly in the last yesterlore, that Old English often expresses emotions not as things that you have or feel, but verbs that you do. And here, we kind of have a little bit of an exception to that, in the sense that this is the mood or the emotion is being done to her. I am of longad. Each elm of longad. Of longian. So the verb is longian, to long for someone. But here it's of longan, to be caused to feel longing, to be, it's sort of like longing has agency here, and it's like taking control of her. I am overwhelmed with longing, is what she's saying here. So she's hiding in this kind of cool grove, but she's full of longing. And with that, we go to the next page. We are now on 115 verso. Okay. Okay. Let me zoom in better. Scroll down. Oh, that's too much. Okay, there we go. I hope that's enough. Maybe that's still too. There we go. Okay. Sindon dena dimma duna upha. Okay. Actually, can I keep going? I think the sentence ends. Yeah, I think the sentence ends here. Yeah. Sindon dena dema duna upha bitra burgtunas brerum brerum bewax newich winnalas. Okay. So sindon dena dimme means that the valleys, the Danes are the den means valley, dena. The valleys are dim. And then we have duna upha. Duna are hills. This is where the word dune comes from in modern English. It's like sand dunes, but in Old English it just means hills. or it's actually not dunes, it's downs that comes from this. Down as in like, what's an example? There are a lot of downs in England, that something downs, insert name downs. I can't think of a single example off the top of my head, but it means hills. The hills upha. I don't know how much, I don't need to translate up, up, but upha is up high, high up. So the valleys are dim, the hills are high, and then bitre burgtunas. A burgtun is a burg is a fort or like city with walls, and a tun is an enclosed town. So it's a fortified town, basically. Now, it doesn't have to be a town where people live. It could just be anything that's been fortified from the outside that houses something within. It just often is a town. But here I think it's more like I think we're still referring to the space that she's in, this grove. Maybe it's fortified from the outside. Maybe there's like a stone wall around it or something. But brerum bewerks. Bewerksne. Sorry. So a brer is a briar, like a rose bush, and then bewaxne, we might be able to guess that is an adjective that is in the accusative singular, masculine accusative singular. Although I think that would be wrong. I think that assumption is wrong because the adjectives have actually bewaxen. Sorry for baiting and switching you. Bewaxen is grown, grown in briars, because that's the dative here. Brerum. So grown in briars, or overgrown potentially. Bewax, grown all around in briars. And then weech is another word for a place where you live. Which is a suffix on a lot of towns. You might have noticed. And it's a witch that is winnalas. Win is joy, so winnalas is lacking in joys, or joyless. Winnalas. So she's further describing where she's at. We heard this cool description of the grove, but for her, she feels unhappy, and to her, the like low area where the grave or the grove is dim. The hills are up high around it, which probably is casting a lot of shadow, and this fortification is overgrown with thorns. Maybe it's not in use anymore, and so it's in a joyless place, a joyless habitat. Full oft meg her rather bejat from sith fran friend sind on earthan leva lifiende leer wardiath von ich on uchtan ana ganga under actreo jonthas skravu farich sitan mot sumor langne. Summer langne die. Whoops. I'm actually going to stop there. That was a long bit, so I'm actually going to way back up here. Winnelas. Okay, full oft meg her rather bejat. So, rather, or actually, I'm going to start with bejat. Bejat is the past of bejetan, which is to like, well, yetan is like to get or acquire something. It's related to the word get, but bejat is like it seizes upon you. And what's seizing upon her is from sith fran. a from seath. A seath is a journey. We talked about that last time. But from is from, away. So this is a journey away, a from seath. And it's whose journey away? It's her lord's journey away. Fran. Fra is lord, and Fran is the genitive here of lord. So the lord's journey, very often, mek her, me here, seized me, rather. Rather means like wrathfully, cruelly, intensely gripped me. Like his leaving intensely gripped me very often here. Again, it's like the emotions are doing things to her, like she's the recipient, or the more like the one who the emotions are done to. She feels wronged by them. Now, friend here is just a late West Saxon way of saying friend. Friend is friends. Friend sind on earthen leve livende. So friends are on earth. Leve livende. So livian here means living. And then leova is just it's like a plural adjective here of leov, beloved. Beloved living friends are lying, or are in the earth, or on earth potentially. And then leer guardiath. Guardia means to guard or to take up or take a space, and leer is a bed. And if I'm not mistaken, it's neuter, so this could be singular or plural, and I think it's plural because we have a plural verb here. So they take beds. They guard beds. This is kind of ironic. Ana ganga under actreo jon thas skravo. This is such good poetry. Sorry, I love this poem. There's a reason we're reading it. So the beloved living friends are on earth, or in earth, occupying or guarding beds. Thone each on uchtan ana ganga. So when I on uchtan, so we talked about this word ucht before. It means like early morning hours before the dawn. I, in the early morning hours, alone, ana ganga, walk. Under actreo jon thas skravo. Under the oak tree. Jon here means through, because it has an accusative subject, or accusative object. Through this or these earthen caves. So it's like she's walking through catacombs. It's kind of what it feels like. Or like she's under an earthen structure. She's walking through this like underground tomb, and she's thinking there's all these living friends who are dead. And I'm alone, awake, alive, walking under this tree through. And it just kind of is exacerbating her feelings of separation. Thad ich sittan mot. I think this is, yes, sittan. It looks like an M. This might be a scribal error because sittam doesn't mean anything. You can't have an M there. It might be assimilation to the M that comes next. Sittan mot. That, especially since this is late, maybe. That ich sittam mot. So mot here is the verb motan, which means may, or it can mean can, or it can mean must. I think here it's more like must, or maybe like all I can do is, and it's to sit. There I can sit, or there I may sit, or I think there I must sit. Sumor langne dag. So sumor is summer. So sumor langne dag is summer long day. All summer day long. And those days are long. That's why she's using summer there, because summer is long. The days in summer are long. Thar each wepan mai mine wrak sidas. Arvatha fella. Forthon ich avre nemai, thara mod chara, minra yereston. Ne alice, thas longa, thes thimek on thisum liva beyat. Okay, so thad each weapon my. There I can. Here we have a different can. It's my here. Weapon, and that is weep. You might have been able to guess that. There I may weep. There I can cry. Mina oraxidas. I think we had the word oraxith before. Maybe it was rak last. Either way, rak we learned is like exile, and seeth is journey. So my exile journeys, I can weep them or weep for them, cry about them. Ervatha fella. So Ervatha we learned is a hard situation that you're in, a difficulty or hardship, and this is many of them, because this is genitive plural of hardships, many. Because forthon each avrenemai tharamod chara minra yerestan, because I ever cannot. We could also say never. I never ever can't, or I never can. Tharamod chara minra yerestan. So mod chara, it's kind of like ucht charu that we learned about last time. It's early morning anxiety. This is mood anxiety or mood care. This word charu is where the word care comes from. I think I mentioned that last time as well. My heart care, my heart worry, or my heart sorrow. And it's genitive here. Thara modchara minra. So it's of my heart's sorrow. I never can yerestan. And you might be able to guess. Restan is to rest. Yerestan is more like a complete sense of like getting rest or finding rest or achieving rest. I can never rest from it. I can never find respite of it. Hence the genitive there. Let's at least finish this sentence. Ne alice thas longathas. Right. Yeah. Ne alice thas longathas. Themic on thisum levi bayat. So we have bayat again. Something seizing her again. It's and we have more genitive. Of all these, or of all this longath. Longath is longing. Of all this longing that seizes me on thisum liva, on this life, in this life. Okay, we're almost to the end. It ends down here. So we have one more yesterlore worth of reading, The Wife's Lament, and then we're going to read, I believe, riddle number 60? I'll double check that. It's one of the riddles. It's the riddle that comes right before the husband's message, which will be the last one in this series. But we'll stop there. We did read my favorite part of this this poem about the grove. That's really cool to me. But we're going to stop there for today because we're out of time. Thank you for everyone who participated in the chat and watched. I appreciate it. If you're watching this in the future and on YouTube, if that's the case, especially, because it will not last on Twitch for very long. But if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the last one and this one, The Wife's Lament, and this elegiac Old English poetry written from women point of views, because we don't get a lot of that in Old English. I hope you're enjoying it, and let me know if you have any comments or questions or things you would like to see in yesterlore. I'll let you know if I can do it. If it's not something I can do in yesterlore, I will try to point you to people who can, or places you can find resources on them. But if there's stuff in Old English you want to see, first check whether I've done it already. We've read all of the rune poems. We've read a few riddles. we've read some letters, and we've read some legal documents. So, and not just in Old English, we've read some other stuff too. We read a lot of Middle English stuff. We read some Old Norse stuff. We read an excerpt of the Gothic Bible. All sorts of stuff. We read some ancient Egyptian stuff as well. So, if there's anything else you would like to see, we read some Greek riddles too. That was fun. Ancient Greek riddles. Please leave a comment if you have any of those types of suggestions or questions. I hope to see you next week. I will be doing some. Next week, I believe we're circling back to a journal video. Actually, it's been a while. It's been a few weeks. And then after that, it will be another. I think it'll be another yesterlore before we go back to Madun. Madun is the conlang I'm currently doing on conlang with me. So if you're interested in that, tune in a couple of weeks. Definitely go back to the first 2 installments of Madun if you want to learn about this weird conlang I'm making. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of whatever time zone you are in, and farewell.